Okay, right. So in the last class, we started off with chapter 5, that is trigonometry. We just discussed some basic stuff that we used to talk about in O-level maths. So we have three trigonometric ratios. It's sine, cos, and tan. And we know how exactly these ratios are using different sides of a right angle triangle. So it is sine is equal to perpendicular over hypotenuse, then cos theta is equal to base over hypotenuse, and so on. And if you have one trigonometric ratio, for instance, we had cos theta, we were able to make or find the other trigonometric ratios, right? So this is something that we have already discussed. But whatever we are going to talk about in this lecture is, think about it as something very, very important. Some of you find it difficult as well, and it is not related to the previous lecture. So forget it if you were not able to understand anything in the past, okay? Let me just go here, okay? Here it is. Okay, let's talk about the second lecture of trigonometry. First of all, we are going to talk about some basic stuff that is very, very important. And then we will talk about questions and all of that stuff. Okay, so let's get started now. First of all, let me just explain this concept and then we'll talk about the questions. Okay, so in trigonometry, we have 4 quadrants, okay? In total, we have 4 quadrants. What exactly these quadrants are and whatever I'm going to write right now, you guys would not be able to relate to it unless you know it already. But once we talk about questions, then things would get clear, okay? So we have 4 quadrants. This is not a graph. This is not y-axis and x-axis. This is basically, you can think about it as 4 quadrants, and I won't be making any graph. I would just be explaining some stuff, okay? This is basically the first quadrant. This one is the second quadrant. Then here is the third quadrant. And then we have the fourth quadrant. Okay, now we have a helping word that helps us over here. It could be different for you as well. It's add A, sugar, S, to cup. Now what exactly it is? It's all greater than 0, sine greater than 0, tan greater than 0, and cos of theta is greater than 0. Okay, all right. What is this? Everything would get clear in some time, so just relax, okay? Now, this is your line, okay? If this line is right here, the angle is going to be 0 degrees. If this line comes here, the angle is going to be 90 degrees, right? Like this angle is going to be 90 degrees. Okay, then if it's right here, this angle right here is going to be its angle on straight line, so it is 180 degrees. So it is 180 degrees, and then this one is 270 degrees, and this is again 360 degrees. Okay, so it would be 360 degrees if it's starting off like this and it's ending all the way like this. Okay, I'm just explaining some basic stuff. Okay, all right. So for now, what do you know? You guys know you have studied trigonometry, or you have at least studied geometry in O levels. You know what exactly angles were. Angles, sum of angles in a circle, that sum used to be 360 degrees. So if I'm starting off right here, this is going to be 360, right? Then if two lines are perpendicular, the angle between them is 90 degrees. Then sum of angles on straight line was 180 degrees. Then again, this is 180 plus this 90 would make it 270 degrees. So this is what I have written on top of all these lines. Okay. Acha. Now, what is all positive, sine positive, tan cos? We'll come back to it later on once we talk about some questions related to the stuff. Another important thing. Now, let's say this is a line. Okay. And then let's say this is another line. And this is how I'm measuring the angle. Okay. So what is happening here? Over here, I'm measuring the angle in anti-clockwise direction. So let's say the angle is 45 degrees, okay? But if I'm measuring the angle in clockwise direction, it is going to be minus 45 degrees, okay? So in the past, I'm pretty sure you guys would never have seen any negative angle. Negative angle does not mean it is less in quantity, right? Negative, you have studied physics. If you're taking physics, you would have studied vectors as well. So at times we use sign to just show the direction, right? So just know whenever you have positive 45, it is basically in the anti-clockwise direction. And whenever you have negative 45, it is in the clockwise direction. All of this would get better in some time. Just relax, okay? This is negative and angle is negative whenever it is in the, one second, clockwise direction. Okay, all right. Let me talk about one very basic question and then things would get better, okay? So just relax. Okay, all right. So imagine that now I want to show $250 on this thing. Okay, I want to show where exactly or what exactly would 250 degrees look like. So I can see that 250 degrees is positive. I'll start off from here. This is 90, 180, and then it would be 270 at this point, right? So it would be somewhere in the middle. It would be approximately this, right? It's just going to be an approximation to explain the content. So this is basically the line. And this angle right here is 250 degrees. The important part is that I have found 250 degrees in the anti-clockwise direction because it was positive 250 degrees. Okay, let me just erase this and I'll use this space to practice this concept, whatever I've erased. Okay, next is minus 120 degrees. Now you need to see what exactly negative 120 degrees look like on these quadrants. Okay, so it's negative 120 degrees. So I cannot say 90 and then one. No, that would be wrong. I need to go in the clockwise direction. So it's maths. Okay, I know if I'm starting off from here, this is going to be 90 degrees. So far I got negative 90 degrees. And if I go all the way till here, it would be negative 180. So it is between negative 90 and negative 180. So it would be something of this sort, right? So this is going to be negative 120 degrees. Any confusions with the idea so far? Anything that you guys are not able to understand?
No, miss.
Okay, Rafe and Munja, what about you?
No, miss, everything's clear.
Okay, perfect. So this means that we already know this concept and that's perfect. Okay, another basic question that is about another concept. Okay, now basically whatever I've discussed for now was to solve trigonometric equations. Okay, now that is a separate concept and that is a detailed concept, but let's talk about one basic example, just so we are in the position to talk about the past paper questions. Okay, so let me just write it down. Let me find a good example first. Okay, all right, so the question says solve cos x equals negative 0.7 for 0 degrees less than equal to x less than equal to 360 degrees. Okay, now please pay attention. This is what exactly a trigonometric equation looks like, right? So you have a trigonometric function and this is an equation. So like a minty mouthwash before your eyes. I love you, young, but that's a no for me. Please keep your mics muted. Right, both of them are able to understand with all of that?
Yes, miss.
Okay, all right. So this is what exactly we were talking about for now. And in order to solve any equation, what do? We make the variable the subject, right? So the basic idea in these questions is going to be same with a few details about trigonometry. So your trigonometric equation is cos x is equal to negative 0.7 and this is your interval. Your theta should be between 0 and 360 degrees. Okay, so what do we see? We can see that cos x is negative. Cos x is negative. When exactly is cos x negative? We need to see that. Okay, let me erase all of this because this is not needed now. Okay, now we can see that in the first quadrant, all the three trigonometric ratios are positive. This means sine, cos, tan, three of them are positive. So theta cannot be in the first quadrant because it was cos theta is negative 0.7, right? So that was a negative value for cos. In the second quadrant, sine is positive. So it could be that our theta is lying in the second quadrant, or for the third quadrant, it says only tan is positive. So it could be that in the third quadrant, my theta is lying. And again, in the fourth quadrant, cos theta is positive, right? So why exactly I wrote this add sugar 2 cup? I wrote this because just so in questions, when we get to see if cos is positive or negative, we are able to choose the quadrant. Okay, so it is either the second quadrant or the third quadrant. Okay, and it is cos of x is equal to negative 0.7. So first of all, you need to find out the value of x directly. And how do we do that? By taking cos inverse of negative 0.7. Since this interval is in degrees, make sure that your calculators are in degrees mode, like mine was in radians. Just make sure that it's in degrees mode, then just press cos inverse negative 0.7. And x has turned out to be 134.43 degrees. This is what you're getting. I would want all of you to do this with me. Please use your calculators and see what exactly are you getting for this. Are you getting 134.43?
Yes, please.
Okay. Now, are we done? Like, is it done, or should we talk about, like, should we find more angles as well? Because our range is
Miss,
between 0 and 360. Yes.
like in IUCSC, we used to like ignore the minus sign with 0.7, and we used to do like cos and anything inside those brackets.
Yeah, that is fine. That is also fine. And even through this method, you can do it. You would get the same thing. Like, finally the thing would become same, right? If you would ignore the final angle, that is also fine. And using this, let me just explain this concept as well, that you can certainly ignore the angle. That's also fine. Okay, so using the negative 0.7, we got 134.43 degrees. Okay, now what exactly this 134.43 degree means? It means that this is going to be something in this quadrant, and your angle is 134.4 degrees. Okay, but trust me, we are not looking for this angle. We are always interested in finding that acute angle, which is basically your basic angle or your alpha, that we would be using in all the quadrants in order to find a final answer. Okay, so just relax and listen to me carefully. In all these quadrants, this would give you your alpha. Similarly, alpha is going to be same in this quadrant. Similarly, alpha would be same here as well. And again, alpha is going to be same here as well. Okay, so by now you know three things. Number one, we have four quadrants. Number two, how exactly these quadrants are. Like you have 0 degrees, you have 90, you have 180, the basic geometric principles. And number three, add sugar 2 cups. Okay, this is the fourth thing I'm explaining right now. So please pay attention. It would get better within a few examples. Do not worry. Okay, so here we are basically talking about the basic angle. Now you guys have just seen, by looking at the fact that cos was negative, right? I was able to identify that my theta is going to be in the second quadrant and in the third quadrant, because in the first quadrant all are positive. So in the first quadrant cos was positive. So technically I cannot have theta in the first quadrant. Similarly, I cannot have theta in the fourth quadrant because cos was positive. My required quadrants are second and third. So how exactly do I find angle in second and third quadrants? That is important. Okay, just look at it right now. So for the third quadrant or for the second quadrant, it's basically 180 degrees minus alpha. Because in the second quadrant, this is how exactly we are finding out the angle. Okay, just look at the arrow. Similarly, if I talk about the third quadrant, I would start off from here. I would go all the way up like this and I would stop at this point. Just use basic maths and tell me what exactly is your theta going to be in terms of alpha. For the third quadrant, it is going to be, just follow the pink line. Look at this. So we are starting off from here. It's 180 till this point because that's angle on straight line, that is 180 degrees, and then you have this alpha. So it is going to be 180 degrees plus alpha. Okay, one second. I suppose you guys are not able to understand it like this. Okay, forget about what question we are talking about. Okay, do not think about it. Just relax. Do not think about it. Imagine that you were asked to solve a trigonometric equation and you came across cos theta equals negative 0.7. So now you know that cos theta is negative. Where is cos theta negative? Cos theta is negative in the second quadrant. Okay, because in the second quadrant only sine is positive. So that means tan and cos both are negative. So cos is negative in the second quadrant and cos is negative in the third quadrant because only tan is positive in the third quadrant. Okay, how do we exactly proceed further? Like, how do I find angle? I know it would be lying in the second and third quadrant, but what next? Okay, so these small formulas that I've written right here are basically the next thing that we need to focus on. Okay,
Miss, the
yes.
answer is 134 and
Yes,
225.6 degrees, right?
very good. That's perfect. Yes, that's right. Okay, acha. Now, how exactly do we do this? So it's 180 minus alpha and it is 180 plus alpha. Now, how would you guys get to find your alpha? That is also important. Okay, that is also important. So this is what we had in the question. It was cos x equals negative 0.7. Let's just talk about it. That's fine. It was negative 0.7. So first thing was that you would be talking about the second and third quadrants because cos is negative. The next thing is, let's stick to what Rafe was saying. Let's keep it negative just so we get the angle directly. Okay, because otherwise I had to explain another process and this would take time. Whatever you have as your trigonometric function, like it's negative 0.7, just make it positive and then find out the angle. Okay, so x is going to be 45.57 degrees. So are we done? No, we are not done. This 45.57 is basically lying in the first quadrant. So this is basically your alpha. Okay, this acute angle, whatever angle you get, if it's acute, that is basically going to be your alpha, and alpha has turned out to be 45.57. If this is alpha, this is also going to be alpha, and the magnitude or the value of alpha is going to be same. Okay, and then you are again going to have same alpha. So for the second quadrant, the formula was 180 minus alpha. When you will do 180 minus 45.57, you are going to get this angle basically, right? And that has turned out to be 134.4 degrees. Similarly, if we talk about the angle in the third quadrant, I would start off from here and I would go all the way like this, and it is going to be, here is your formula. So it would be 180 plus 45.57, because this is what my alpha is, and this would give you 22 5.57 degrees. Okay, yes, any confusions with this, Munja and Motisum?
Miss, like I did, like the first quadrant is A, the second is S, third is D, and the fourth one is C.
Yes.
So like in A, all of them are positive.
Yes.
In S, the only sign is positive and the cos and tan are negative.
Yes.
In the third quadrant, only tan is positive and sine and cos are negative.
Very
and
good.
Same goes with the fourth one.
Like in the fourth
So,
one,
and then
cos is positive, tan and sine are negative, right?
Yes, miss. And then I also like memorize those formulas. For example, in the first quadrant, we don't do anything. In the second, we do 180 minus theta. In the third, we do 180 plus theta. And in the fourth, 360.
Yeah,
theta.
everything is perfect except this theta, right? Theta is basically your final angle, right? Just call this alpha, because you know at times students are confused between theta and alpha. Whatever you get as this would basically be your theta, right? Or your
Miss,
x
the theta
basically.
means angle, right?
Yeah, theta means angle. Yeah, you can call that theta as well, but at times in the questions it's the angle is basically theta. Like for this one it's x degrees, but it could be theta as well, right? So at that point you might get confused, so only that's why I'm saying. Otherwise usually it's called alpha. Okay, but otherwise all
Okay.
of what you said is perfectly fine. Okay, Motasam, can you tell me anything that you were not able to understand? Yes, Motasam, is everything clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Motasam, what about you? Right, okay, perfect. So let's talk about, are you guys comfortable with this concept already?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I've already taught Munya and Rafa is the first time with you, but I suppose you're okay with this. So I think we should talk about a past paper question, okay? That is very challenging comparatively, but it would get better, do not worry. Look, this is what I was talking about.